This is Fan Electric Ghost that went live on the air for the first time with D. Hurley, and an emotion body code practitioner. And I want to thank you for being on the Fan Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I want to let people know that we are a featured podcast on the Newsly platform. You can see that listed on Newsly. They're an audio only platform. And those of you listening, if you use coupon code GHOST, you can get 1 month free premium subscription on that plan. We will be on Newsly later tonight. And I want to thank you for being on the podcast. This is going to be episode 959 of the Family to Ghost podcast. We've been on the air since 2016, tracking out on Apple Podcast with that number. And for this episode, we're going to talk about healing from PTSD using frequency. And then also we have your landing page, which is kind of long, but that will be clickable when we're on all the major podcast sites. So if people click on that, they'll actually be able to connect to it directly on the published version of the podcast. For that website, do you want to explain to people what happens when they click that?
Yeah, if you just click on lighthouseenergyhealing.com, there's going to be some information on there about what I do with my business, and also some links for one of the devices that I use to help people with their healing process.
That's cool. So without further ado, we'll get into the conversation. So you've been, one of the questions that we like to ask is like, well, what do you do in your practice? Can you explain your practice to the audience?
Well, usually whenever I do a call with somebody, I'll go over what I do, and I'll ask them, if they've ever had any kind of energy healing work done, like Reiki or something like that. And I get a feel for what they've done before. And then I try to explain to them exactly what it is I do, because you can do this anywhere. You can do it remotely. You don't have to be in the same room with someone when you have this kind of energy healing work done, because we are all energy, and energy is everything, and we're all connected. So when you have permission from somebody to connect to them subconsciously, and you ask their permission, you can connect to them, and you can muscle test them, which is called kinesiology. Chiropractors use it a lot in their practices, and holistic doctors use kinesiology to muscle test people. So what I do is I ask for their permission to muscle test them, and then I have a chart that I go by, and I ask what emotions need to be released from the body. Usually I'm just working on emotional issues. They're usually emotional issues that are tied to physical ailments in the body. And every emotion is good. We can feel emotions all day long, and it's good, but it's just that we need to process them correctly in order to heal. So if you're having like a lot of anger or bitterness or emotions that are low vibration, it's okay to have that emotion, but let it go. You need to feel it and know what it is, recognize it, and then release it. But usually people do not release these emotions. They go throughout a whole lifetime of piling up these negative emotions and low vibrations, and they're carrying them around, and it starts causing disease in the body. So I learned this technique from a chiropractor, Dr. Bradley Nelson. He wrote the book called The Emotion Code. And that's what helped me get over PTSD that I had suffered with for many years. I didn't even know what I had until somebody, actually was a police officer, told me. He was working with me, and he said, every time you talk about this incident where your husband had attacked you, your left shoulder shakes. And he said, that's PTSD. And I was like, I wasn't aware of that. But I used this technique to release PTSD from my body. And then I was just shocked after that, what everything else just started changing. Do you want me to talk some more about it?
No, maybe I could try to get people maybe to kind of elaborate. Like, do you find that a lot of the people who come to you are suffering from PTSD, and maybe like yourself, they didn't know it? Do you find a lot of people that come to you that is maybe one of the core issues that they have?
Well, a lot of the people that do come to me are domestic violence survivors, just because I kind of advertise in that area, because I was a survivor myself. So I do tend to attract that kind of clientele. And whenever they come to me, we start working on issues, and it definitely could be because a lot of them have like nightmares, reoccurring thoughts that are just looping in their head that they can't get over from years and years of things that are coming up. And, I don't diagnose anyone because I'm not a doctor, but usually they do have a lot of the symptoms from
Mhm.
that. But it can just be like little ailments in the body too. Like somebody can have chronic knee pain, and once you find out what emotions are trapped in that area and release them, their pain's gone. They've had it for years, and they're like, I had no idea this was an emotional thing that was trapped in my body. They're going to a chiropractor over and over. That's what Dr. Bradley found out, was people
Mhm.
returning for things,
Yeah.
chronic ailments, and then he found out that it was linked to some emotional trauma they had, maybe a car accident or something, and they had this energy of shock
Mhm.
that was just reverberating through their system. They never healed that trauma from that car accident. So once they released that emotion of shock or whatever was related to that accident, their body just started healing on its own. It's pretty incredible. So, and these are not just people.
Well, it's
Pets can have.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter actually rescued a cat
Uh-huh.
that had PTSD. They had a lot of emotional trauma, and it took a lot of work to get the cat to trust the family. Because when we
Yeah.
first met the cat, it would just stay in a room and be hiding in this corner, and it never wanted to come out for like a month. We just feed it
Oh,
and let it stay there. It's like, fine, we won't push on you. And then
yeah.
eventually, we always left the door open, and it came downstairs like on Christmas morning. We bought it like in November, and then the Christmas day, like it came down, and it's like suddenly it's like, okay, I guess you guys are okay.
Well,
And
pets
ever
can keep.
since then, it's been like a cat that has a lot of dog behavior. She like to hug, which most
Aw.
cats don't do. She likes to be very touchy feely, where most cats like they won't. She one day she came to me and she gave her paw out and let me touch
Oh,
her paw. And on a cat, that's like a no go zone. Most cats,
right.
if you touch their paw, they'll bite you. But
Yeah.
I read about cat behavior, and they said if a cat lets you touch their paw, they're showing that they love you and they trust you enough to show their vulnerable area. And I was like, wow,
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
animals can pick that stuff up too. They can pick up people's vibration. They know who's a good person,
Yeah,
who's not. See, that's a good example
yeah,
of
yeah.
frequency
That's
right
always cool.
there. Yeah, I love that.
So,
Yep.
so how does energy healing work, and like how did you like decide that that's what you wanted to get into? Was there some kind of
Well,
moment where you found that you were connected to that?
yeah, a friend of mine actually sent me the book, The Emotion Code, and I started reading it, and I couldn't believe the science behind it. He explains, why, this is scientific. Energy is real. We all have an energy field that's around us. It's like 3 to 6 feet around our bodies. And that's why when you walk around somebody or go into a room, you can feel the vibe of the room. Some of us are more sensitive to this than others, but
Mhm.
I like to say, like, you can stand in a line like at a grocery store and somebody can get frustrated, and all of a sudden you're frustrated and you're wondering why are you getting upset, and it's the person next to you. You might be picking up their energies or their frequency, and it is a real thing. It can be measured scientifically. Albert Einstein talked about it first. I think there was this quote: it's everything is energy, and that is all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So he knew a long time ago that energy is real, and that you can pick up energy and frequencies from people that are around you and being in a certain environment. We've all been into places where we're like, oh, I don't like this. I just feel bad in here. I just want to leave. You want to leave. And you need to listen to your body, because
Yeah,
that's your
right.
body saying something's off. Something's not right.
Yeah, yeah, the
So,
bad vibes. And it's interesting because if you see behind me,
uh-huh.
yeah, I'm a synthesist, so I use sound waves, and I'm a sound
Oh,
designer. So I actually have things called oscillators, and they
yeah.
create sound waves. And they actually, so I'm a musician that actually takes like sine waves, square waves, ramp waves, pulse waves, and I turn them into sounds. I
That's
custom design
awesome.
my own sounds before I even write a song. Yeah, and it's a type it's called synthesis or sound design. And I
Mhm.
use Dr. Robert Moog, who invented some of the early synthesizers back in the American engineer. But one of the things he said that was very interesting to me, being an engineer, electrical engineer, was he felt the modes he built. He said, there are quotes from him. He's just a doctor. He's a scientist. He said that he felt the machines he made, the oscillators, had a level of a consciousness that connected to the outside world, even though they were machines. And he felt that
Yeah.
when people used his instruments, musicians actually could tap into it. And even though it was a mechanical thing, they felt the soul in it. And
Yeah.
even to this day, I do feel, because these are analog instruments, they're not digital, they're analog. So it's a type of electronics that's kind of old fashioned, and it has like more variability. They're not perfect. They're actually, it's kind of cool. They're hand built and they're imperfect. And so they're not like things today that are so like perfect. They're so digital. These things are hand built and they have variability, and they have to warm up. They actually don't
Oh,
work like a digital thing. It's like you turn it on, it's like there. These things take like 20 minutes to warm up. And so
oh,
there's something about them that feels authentic. And yeah, I think that the frequencies we make as musicians, we can see a crowd. When I use like certain waves, I can make people frenetic, or I can make them kind of laid back, or make them upset, or make them
yes.
happy. Frequencies affect human beings. And as a
Yes.
musician, we can see this immediately with our art. We see what our sound waves do. And
Right.
so that's kind of interesting, that the whole idea of energy healing is like, I totally can get into it because as a musician, I kind of see it. And what we
Yeah.
practice actually does affect people.
Yes, that is so exciting. I keep my husband does some music producing, and I keep saying you need to do music that has the high vibration with the high, the good healing hurts in the background, and make music like that people are getting the healing with the music, and use the words that are like positive and going to bring healing too, because words are so powerful. We all know that from like Makoto, was it, who was that Japanese? I
Yeah.
wrote it down. The Japanese, right? Masura Emoto, who did where he spoke to the water and the water
Mhm.
picked up the frequencies from the words. And I just think that would be so powerful to have that together. Just powerful words and messages of healing with that frequency together. Like we need more of that in the world, high vibration, healing stuff going out there. And
Yeah, you
I think
think,
more and more people are learning about this.
well, if you think about, there's some artists that kind of embodied that, in the 70s, like Stevie Wonder and Bob Marley. A lot of
Yeah.
what Bob Marley did was like in a certain frequencies, and he was very spiritual. And so a lot of reggae, at least from the Rastafarian point of view, has a lot of spirituality in those frequencies, and it's very elevating, and people they feel they feel happy, they dance, they feel uplifted, they feel like they don't just sit, they get kind of infectious, they get into this mood, and it makes you happy. It's not
Yeah.
like something like really kind of down tempo or on a downward spiral type of music. It's actually kind of elevation music. There's certain types of music, like gospel music. There's certain things that are very elevated, and it causes people to kind of go to another plane. And it's because they're reaching to that, in my opinion, that you're actually connecting to people on those frequencies.
Yeah. And other cultures know about this and have been using energy healing for a long time. I don't know why it's taken us so long to get onto this, that there's a governing meridians, there's meridians in our body that need to be synced up energetically to help with our healing. And I mean, I kind of do know why we're some of this technology has been hidden from us, but I won't go into that because that's a whole other
Yeah,
conversation. But yeah,
yeah.
um,
Well,
we can.
medicine and pharmaceuticals, they have reasons why they want certain things to be a certain way, because you keep on coming back. And so, like, we have capitalist tendencies to want to push certain things over other things.
Yeah.
It's like I'm part indigenous, Cherokee and Blackfoot. So the Cherokee and Blackfoot believe in a lot of things that are like indigenous peoples. There's a lot of spirituality. There's a lot of spirit animals. There's a lot of believing in nature itself, and what
Yes.
you can actually heal from in nature. And those concepts for Western mindsets are like, oh, that's not logical. So they don't
Right.
want to think that way.
They
But if you
can't
get into
patent it.
Eastern
Sell
mindsets or indigenous mindsets, yeah. you have things that, well, that's free. That's what the world gives you. That's what Gaia already is has for you. But you've
Yes.
kind of tricked people into thinking the guy, you don't need to do that. You come to me and get it from me. But
Yeah, we missing out on all that beautiful stuff, that culture. We need to get back to those things.
yeah, well, I think like what you're doing is like the ideas like bioresonance and energy healing. People, oh, that's new age, and people want to downplay spiritualism. They want to downplay people who are more, like I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Nichiren Daishonin Buddhist. And it's a very
Mhm.
Eastern philosophy. It's actually a Japanese form of Buddhism. And
Uh-huh.
it's a different mindset than a Western idea. It's the idea of like law of cause and effect and that type of thing. It's not the same as a Western mindset. So once you
Yep.
get into different philosophies that are outside of your comfort zone, some people are like, oh, they can't buy into it. But I think some people get into a point where they've been doing the same thing over and over and it's not working. And
They're
I
getting
think a lot of
frustrated.
times that's when they come to people like you. It's like, okay, yeah, I've been trying to do it the way the world tells me I'm supposed to do it, and it's not working. So then they
Hmm.
want to talk to somebody like you, and they say, well, what else is there?
That's my story. That's what happened to me. I tried for years trying to heal my body from it was like one thing after another. And I tell you, I met my ex. The day that I met him, my stomach hurt so bad. And then I think it was that week that I actually went to the
Mm.
emergency room. I've never had this problem in my life. And they said that I had an ulcer, a really bad ulcer. It felt like somebody stabbing a hot knife in my back. I never had that issue in my whole life until I met him. So I suffered with ulcers, IBS, all kinds of gut and issues in my body. I was diagnosed with neuropathy. And I finally had a really good doctor who just took a look at me. I kept saying, I don't want the medicine. I don't want to take the medicine. I don't want to be hooked on some kind of pills. I just didn't want to go down that route. This good doctor, though, she looked at me, she said, you need to get the anxiety out of your life. Whatever's causing you the stress and the anxiety. Stress is the number one killer. And I thought, okay, stress is an emotion. That's not like a virus, bacteria. Like there's something weird here. She's telling me that it's stress. And she's so right. The day that I left and I started doing the emotion code work on myself, like my stomach issues went away, my neuropathy went away. I started releasing the anxiety and the trauma emotions. I didn't realize I had so many that I was holding on to for all those years. But I've been 6 years away from that environment and I've never felt better. Like I don't have any of those issues now. I'm not on any medication. If something starts bothering me in my body, then I just check. I muscle test myself and I find out, well, it's probably some emotion that's stuck in here from something. It could be even a conversation with somebody that just didn't go right. And you're carrying around some kind of negative energy from it and you got to let it go. It can be little things or it can be big things. But we should be checking in on ourselves daily and listen to our higher self because we really do know what's going on in our own bodies. Like,
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't listen to their bodies. A lot of
yeah,
people find out, something catastrophic happens because they weren't listening to the things. Your body's actually telling you a lot of things every day, but sometimes
yeah,
you're scared to kind of like, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor because I
right.
don't want to find out what it is, right? And I don't want to challenge it because I don't want to have to, stop my what I'm doing. But sometimes like your body says like, no, you need to stop, right? That
Yeah.
you actually need. It's like it's telling you something because you're doing something that's not affecting it, right? And you need to either change your mindset or change the
Yes.
people you're around, or or
Yes.
or, or stop dwelling on the resentments and
Yeah.
start having more positive thoughts. Because some
Yeah.
people, if they live in resentment and then they get negative, then they start getting all kinds of ailments like stomach issues and they start having issues because they're like, they've taken all that tension and it's just inward and it's not releasing. And if you're not
Yes.
releasing it, like yeah, I go out in the woods, I mountain bike, I hike, and then I play music. And what I find is like I play my piano and I just every day, not just to practice, but to kind of like a cathartic thing to like take everything that's in my subconscious and kind of have this healing session where I create some art from all my emotions. And then I'll go and I'll walk or I'll bike. But I find that the music does something with my left and right brain, being a
Yes.
piano player, that it just, I can't think about things. When I'm playing my music, I can't think about things that my mind is racing and you're too much going on in your head. When you play an instrument, you get so caught up in it that it kind of you get into this kind of flow state kind of trance and it gets you out of it. And I think people who don't have that, they have to find
Yeah.
something else. But when,
Yes.
being a musician, I find that that really helps me. And I've kind of,
That's
whether I make money with it or not, it's not the point. It's kind of like it's my therapeutic session.
yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. That's kind of like meditating and you're just letting your everything flow. That's beautiful. Yeah, we all need more of that. There's just so much
Yeah, I mean,
busyness
I
in the
think
like,
yeah, I think everybody can find that, whether you go and cook or you hike or you crochet, you do something that calms yourself. Like you go
yeah,
find something that's not just sitting there watching the TV or doing playing a video game. It's like find something that's actually going to engage your mind and your body in a very positive way. Whether and all humans are very creative, and to find something that's artistic that you're able to do.
yes.
And I think that's what, to me, if I've always been a big promoter of art therapy, which I think, is that's like free.
Yes.
You can get into it and then you can find out like why I need to kind of go find out about my inner child and find out and go to, figure out how to deal with things like through biofeedback or bioresonance and talk to an expert. But there's some things you can do to kind of at least start to feel better.
Yeah,
Um, and I think like that's the kind of start with somebody like recognizing you got a problem and
yeah.
recognizing you have to work on yourself because like a lot of times people, oh, I'm going to find my soulmate and that's going to solve it. But if you
Right.
still have all these inner child issues, you're just going to bring them to that next person and you're going to keep on looking for the next person and you never resolve the core issue.
I did that. Yeah. Yeah. As I look back, history can teach us a lot of things. As I look back, I saw that I was doing that. And so that's why the first thing I did when I got out, I said, I'm going to work on myself because I know that I need to be the best version of me for my kids as a single mom, starting over. I thought this is the best gift I can give them is to work on myself to make sure that I'm healed so that I can be there for them and to help them heal through this process. Everybody needs to take that time to work on themselves or yeah, we just keep spreading that stuff around. That's not good. But I found out that when you're resonating at a high frequency and you're loving yourself more and accepting yourself more, you're going to start attracting more of that into your life. You're not going to attract so many of the toxic
Mhm.
people unless they're like energy vampires. Those are out there too. But you'll start to
Yeah.
attract better people who want to treat you better. Yeah, energy vampires
So
are a
that's
real
like the
thing.
law of attraction. Right?
Yeah.
But that's like the law of attraction. Like, so if you get into this thing where you're starting to push off, you talked about it before, like you go into the room and you didn't even know somebody, but you immediately get in a room and you get this, feeling this person is putting out really bad vibes
Yeah.
and you can't really pin it down, but you feel it. And you're like, wow, what the heck? What is going on here? And you got to either trust yourself or start to realize that there is something out there that's like a nonverbal communication. There's something you're picking up.
Yes.
And some people are like, well, they didn't say anything. And I don't know. It's like you got to start to trust your
Yes.
instincts. And I think some people, they don't trust those instincts and they try to push it down. They say, well, I can't be. I got to, and it's not all verbal. It's like sometimes you have to be able to have the presence to understand there's other things beyond what's seen, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to teach my daughter that. She just turned 11 and I tell her that all the time. They have these little tips at school and stuff in that grade. And I always say if somebody around you is making your stomach hurt or making you feel bad, just avoid them. Don't go around that. You need to listen to your inner self. And I know there's a saying, be nice to everybody. She thinks she's got to be friends with everybody. And I said, just protect yourself. You don't have to do anything. Just protect yourself, you know? And I was thinking about how dogs have these instincts, you
Yeah.
know, like we were talking about, animals have these instincts. Humans need to listen to these instincts. Even plants have feelings. You know, there was this weird study done with a guy who created the lie detector test,
Yeah.
who found
Everything.
out, you heard about that? That plants even have
Yeah.
feelings. They
Plants.
speak the thought. Like, our thoughts are so powerful, and we got to be so careful, because even our thoughts can affect people around us
Oh,
too.
yeah. Yeah, plants have interesting nervous systems, like in their roots. They found like neurons and like things that basically give them almost like this chemical sight that you wouldn't think they
Yes,
have, but they actually can see the world like in a chemistry way, the way they can pick up chemicals and actually read it and
like
kind of
more colors
communicate
than
with
we
each
can
other.
see. Like,
Yeah, so they're communicating and they're telling each other things. They're telling each other
yes,
about like the weather, about insects, about the water and the food, or there's lack of food, or there's not enough sunshine. Sometimes they let the younger plants get the sunshine, and or sometimes they don't. But it's like there's stuff going on. They're not just sitting there.
yes,
They're sentient, and people
yes,
want to assume, oh, it's not human that they're not sentient, but they are. And that's
right,
where I think the mistakes are. Like indigenous people kind of knew that, and then people thought, well, that's a fairy tale. And it's like, no, it's like they kind of understood it, and now we actually are like, oh, it is true.
right, right.
Now
Now
you know,
we're going
so
back.
it all comes back, but it's like the understanding that there is a soul in the cat, there's a soul in the dog. But there were some people who said, well, there isn't, and well, that's not exactly true. But that's the problem, is the disconnection from the entire world of
Yeah,
not putting things together, not seeing that holistic picture.
yeah,
So a human being is part of the whole world. You're connected
yeah,
to all the things that are in this world. And so that
exactly.
energy is like the insects and the water and the air and the people and the animals. It's like that's all connected. But we've
Right.
been told by some people that it's disconnected and you can do whatever you want
I know.
without any consequence. And
And
I
the
think
world
that's where the
aren't
mistake
connected.
is yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a mistake. But like if you start to think in a more of an energy focused world and you want to have good energy, you have to consider about what you're putting out, what you're putting in, and what you're doing not only to yourself, but the people around you and the environment around you. And
Yes.
it's not disconnected.
Right. Right. You totally get it. It's awesome. I love that. But yeah, and the bioresonance scanner that I use, I think I love it so much because you can email somebody a report and they can look at it. It's like tangible. So they can see on the report, because it'll pick up emotions that they're dealing with. Like it may show that they have unforgiveness or bitterness or anxiety in their body. And then it will send frequencies to help balance that out in the body, so they're more in an energetic state. Because Albert Einstein found out, I think he's the one that found out, that love resonates at a high frequency, shame resonates at the lowest frequency. So they can definitely measure what's going on in your body, what emotions are there, and then the scanner can tell
Hmm.
you where those emotions are in your body. Like it could be in your lungs or your heart, and certain emotions get trapped in certain areas. Dr. Bradley told a really cool story in his book about who's the guy that played Superman? I can't think of it. The one who died, who was crippled.
Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, Christopher Reeves.
Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, he, after his injury, they said his wife was taking care of him, and then after he passed, they said she passed away not soon after from lung cancer, and they couldn't find lung cancer in her history. She wasn't a
Yeah.
smoker, didn't show up. And they're like, where did this come from? Well, on Dr. Bradley's chart, you look at the emotion of grief is usually in the lungs. That's where you carry grief, in your
Yeah.
lungs. So it just makes a lot of sense, that she was probably grieving him and had that emotion. And it's okay to feel those, but we got to release them at some point and heal, because your body keeps the score. It really does. Like that book, your body knows exactly what's going on and what needs to be released. Yeah, I
Yeah, a
had
lot of times if people lose a significant other, they can't get past that grief. And then you see
yeah,
them pass not too soon after because they didn't find a way to kind of move on.
yeah, they just had that mindset to heal this trauma, but Some people just aren't ready for that, and that's okay. That's just where they're going. But we can all do better, and we can work on ourselves so that we can have a better high vibration. Even money has a vibration, having abundance carries a frequency. So there's so many things we can work on in ourselves and, in our family to help them. The
So how
scanner,
does that
though, that
biofeed? How does
uh-huh.
that work? I was just wondering how the
So what
biofeedback scan works.
Yeah, it's kind of this technology that was created by NASA. They've had the technology for a while and used it with astronauts, when they're in space to help keep them healthy while they're in space. The technology's been around a lot longer than that, though. But there was a machine that was like a $30,000 machine, and you have to go there to the facility, and they'd hook you up to it, and they would scan you, and they'd get your profile, and you'd get a report, and it took like an hour, I think, to do all that. Well, now it's like I have like a little handheld device. It's like a cell phone, and I have it on there like an app. You can download it like an app, and you create a profile of yourself. So it'll want your height, your weight, your birthday, a picture, like just a facial picture with nothing that's going to interfere with the frequency. So you have to like take your glasses off, or you can take a picture of your hand. It just needs to pick up some frequencies from your skin or your body. And once you create a profile, then you can scan anybody. And like I scanned my mom the other day. She's in Oklahoma and I'm in California. I scanned her and emailed her the report, and she's like, I can't believe this is picking up all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, it knows, because everything's energy, and it's just reading what's going on in your body. Doesn't matter where you're at. It's just like making a phone call. You don't see it, but the frequencies are going through the airwaves. So it picks up her energetic frequencies. And we all have an energetic signature that's just for us. Just like, with a voice, you have a voice signature that's only yours, that can only be identified, with you. And there is a scan on there where you can talk into it for 10 seconds, and it picks up the frequencies in your voice, and it will tell you what's going on and what's out of balance. So the scanner, the device itself has all kinds of different scans on it. It's incredible. So it'll do like a vital scan to pick up what's going on in your organs. If you have viruses, if you have parasites, if you have mold, if you have heavy metals in your body, if what chakras are out of alignment, what meridians are out of alignment. It is such a detailed report. You would have to go to so many different doctors and get blood work done. You'd pay a lot of money just to have all those different things done. And this thing does it all. And it's extremely accurate because it's measuring what's going on in the body at that particular time. So it's like you send blood work off to 3 different labs and you can get 3 different reports. With this, it's not. It's picking it up as it's going through your system. Nothing's interfering. So it does like a comprehensive report that even goes into more detail. So you'll get scans that look like x-rays. It'll show your whole skeletal system, your nervous system, and it'll tell you, what's going on with, everything in your body. And it just blows my mind still when I read the reports. I've only been doing this for like 2 years. And I'm still like, this technology is just so cool. I think everybody's going to have this in their home one day. It's like a Star Trek, we just zap somebody, a little scanner, and you can see what's going on in the body, send in the frequencies, and they're feeling better already. It's pretty cool. My daughter was
I mean, human beings are electric. Yeah, I mean, we're all electrical energy. And so, our heart rate, is a waveform. Our voice is a waveform. We've got, the sinus rhythm and all that. There's so many rhythmic things going on with your breathing rate, your oxygen level. There's all these rates going on in your body, like the electrical frequencies in your brain patterns. Based on what you're thinking about and what part of your brain you're using, you can see things firing off, and you could, you get very sophisticated. You can start to measure and see what parts of the brain are getting triggered from different things.
Yeah, we're
emotions and words. So this is why people, when they say, "Oh, words don't matter," but if you actually, if you scan the brain when certain words are said to you, it will trigger things in your brain. So it does matter because it's actually triggering certain parts of your brain, and it triggers emotions, and it triggers feelings, and it triggers like your organs that start acting in certain ways if you're hearing certain things. So that say that words don't matter, those are frequencies, and those frequencies mean something, and your body interprets it. And so that's where the kind of misunderstanding that some people have about what they're doing in the
Yeah.
world and not understanding the interconnectedness. I think that's where people, can probably learn.
Yes. I was part of a conversation I should have gotten into one day on a social media site. These people were attacking someone, and I was just like, okay, do you guys understand that we're all connected and what you're saying about this person isn't very nice? And I could tell that what they were saying was coming from a victim mentality, and they were hurting, so they're hurting someone else. And I thought I should have just stayed out of the conversation. I'm learning. I should stay out because some people aren't ready to hear that
Mhm.
yet. But we all need to remember that we do affect
Yeah.
everybody, and it
Yeah, it
comes
depends
back
on
to,
where people are, but
yeah. And some people are
but
not
you
going to
said,
change.
like, one of the things I was reading about is, like, energy healing. Yeah, that's true. But energy healing can work for everyone, and we talked about pets. So do you actually have anybody that actually brings pets to you for energy healing?
Well, they don't even have to bring them to me. I've worked on pets long distance. I worked on my friend sent me a picture of her dog, and we made a profile, and her dog hurt itself. Its back was like injured, so they were going to have to put the dog down. And I ran frequencies to the dog, and she couldn't believe it started walking again. My dog was limping one day, and I thought it was just a little sticker in his paw, and I thought maybe it was just sore. So I checked his paws, but then the next day she was still limping a little bit, went over her feet, and I thought, wait a minute, I have a scanner. Why haven't I scanned her yet? So I got my scanner out, and she had something done to her hip, like a ligament in her hip. And I got nervous when I saw the report. So I thought, I'm going to take her to the vet. So I took her to the vet. The vet's like, yeah, she has a torn ligament. This cost me $350 to have that done, a little x-ray to see what was going on. I took her home, and I'm like, it's the same thing my scanner said. So I sent her frequencies, and like the next day she just hopped out of her kennel. She was just fine, like a little pup. And here the vet was like, if it doesn't clear up in a week, we're going to have to do surgery. It could be a lot of money. And I'm like, I am so thankful that I have this device. I think it saved me a lot of money. Some of my friends have been using it on their horses because it's very expensive to get x-rays done on horses. I grew up with horses. I know this. It's very expensive to have a vet come out and look at things. Yeah. It's incredible when you can just
They must
scan
put,
them and you can see everything, what's going on with them. So,
yeah, horses, a lot of times they get put down, and maybe with this type of thing, you wouldn't put them down, and you actually, because it's so expensive, or you think that's the only solution when you actually could have used this method to not have to put them down.
yeah. And you think about it, they don't have the placebo effect like we do. Nobody told that horse, I'm giving you an aspirin or sugar pill. They actually sent the
Yeah, yeah,
frequencies, and these
yeah.
animals are starting to behave differently. They're getting better. Oh,
Well, it
the
makes
proof is
sense. I mean,
out
it seems like, animals are, well, yeah, because we're all connected. Like you said, all mammals and, even the insects probably even respond to it. That this is the way nature is. Nature,
Yes.
if you're out there, there's what you can see and what you don't see. There's
Yeah.
light that you don't see as a human being, but then some animals see it. There's sounds that my cat can hear that I can't hear. Doesn't mean it's not there. And so
Right.
there's a lot of
Right.
people that don't understand the example of the light, the different forms of light that different animals can see and we can't see it. The different sound
Yeah.
waves that certain animals can pick up and we can't hear it. So the
Right.
idea that there's these unseen things that scientifically we already know. There's ultraviolet, there's hypersonic, there's all kinds of things. There's beyond the hearing of a human being that, like I said, cats can hear and birds can hear these frequencies that we don't hear. So
Yeah.
they can respond to things that we don't even know about. They can pick up things that we can't even pick up. So the idea that,
Right.
like, oh, that's new age. It's not new age. It's like there's stuff there. And I mean, I'm a believer in the waves because I deal with oscillators and I can see what
Yeah.
they do.
You
So
know what it
when I
does.
treat certain frequencies, I can make frequencies that can make you go to sleep. I can do
Right.
pink noise, blue noise, stuff that sounds like ocean waves or wind and put it in such a way that I can put, people to go to bed, make them go. And you can make, people who are sound designers, we create things to help people sleep
Yes.
because we can trigger that in your brain and then you'll go to sleep. So it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that the scanner does too. I've used it whenever I have trouble sleeping. I'll make a little playlist on there and just put the frequencies. It has over 2,100 different frequencies you can choose from and make this little custom playlist. So I have one that helps me go to sleep at night, that helps me wind down, relax my brain, gets rid of stress. I'll put like 15 different frequencies in there and just listen to it before I go to bed. And it helps a lot. I was going to say it also has a feature on there where you can imprint frequencies into objects. So you can set your glass of water or your jewelry. I have little beads that hold, they hold frequency. I'll put my jewelry on it and I'll hit the imprint button and imprint the frequencies that I might be needing for that day. So like if I'm having some anxiety or needing even like weight loss and stuff, there's frequencies you can put on there for that. And you can put them in like these little sugar pellets they can get from the company, imprint it in sugar pellets. One of my friends did that for her son who had, I think he only had one kidney. He had to take these big, huge kidney pills, to help him. And she was trying to get it to him, crush him up. And it was just really frustrating. So she started imprinting the frequency of that pill into the sugar pellets, because there's an area where you can put like medicine or vitamins you need into the sugar pellets too, and you can transfer the energy into that item. And she started giving the sugar pellets to her son. And every time she go for the doctor checkups, he's like, wow, his kidneys are improving. Like, what are you doing? He's like, are you getting him to take the pills? She said, I got him. I put him in sugar pellets. He's taking them. So he was still getting the benefit of taking those, even though he wasn't even swallowing those physical pills. He was getting the frequency of that pill. So that's a great testimony right there of energy and frequencies. Another woman on our team, or one of the ladies I worked with, said she had a lump on her breast. And this is before she even got a scanner for herself. She was at a mall and somebody was showing her. They imprinted the frequencies for cyst and something else on her ring. And she was wearing her ring over the weekend. And I think she said like on Monday, she noticed that the lump was gone. And she's like, just by imprinting the frequency on the ring she was wearing was affecting her body. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, why are we not taught this in kindergarten? Why are we not teaching kids this in elementary school, that energy is real and it can help us? So cool. I love it.
Well, it's like the positive mindset. I mean, if you think about it, it's like you could be like in solitary confinement and you could be very resentful, or you could start to get a very different point of view, right? You could actually go and start to like educate yourself and get on a different plane. You've got many examples of people like that might have been stuck in prison or stuck in a prison camp or whatever, and they were able to beat that negative zone with the positive mindset. So they put their mind in a different frequency, even though the things around them were negative, they were able to survive. They were able to kind of get out of that because they kept themselves in a plane. Nelson Mandela was a good example, or somebody kept themselves in the mental plane, even though there was all this bad stuff happening. He was able to put himself in that zone. And I think that's a mind over matter. It's like, even though your physical circumstances can be such, you can actually do a lot with your brain. And you can, I think what you put yourself is you open yourself up to those universal frequencies. As a musician, we think about the muse, and we feel like we're vessels. Like a lot of musicians, people like, how do you do that? Well, we pick up, we can channel. It's like a lot of musicians, what we can do is like we get into these zones and we channel what's in the room into our performance. We're picking up the audience, and that's what we can do. So it's a real thing. A lot of artists can tell you, like, we pick up the vibes in a room and we put that into our performance. And it's hard to describe, but it happens. So that means we're picking up that energy and we're using it. And so that's a real thing. And it's feeding back. It's going back and forth. The audience feels that we feel it. It's
Right.
all interconnected.
Like symbiotic. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, so it makes sense that if you got a device that could tap into the positive aspects of these things, that you could actually
Yeah.
do a lot of things to heal yourself. That is doesn't seem far fetched. It seems like that is real, and a lot, like I said, a lot of indigenous cultures already believed in these concepts before,
Right.
thousands of years ago. And and so it's like, why did early humans believe these things? Why did they
Yeah.
practice these things? Why is it in their literature? Because
Right.
it was real.
It is real. We have so much power that we don't know that we have. We have a power in our own minds to heal our bodies. That's why the whole placebo effect works itself. And yeah, these cultures knew so much. I've heard of people like just singing certain chants, and they have had people hooked up to machines in the hospital and seen like tumors disappear in a body just because they were chanting a certain thing to these bodies and stuff. It's we've all got to
Yeah,
open our
all
eyes to
kinds of
this.
monks from all yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
all kinds of monks from many different sects of spiritual
Yeah.
practices, or shamans, and high priests or whatever from different indigenous cultures really believed in the kind of this transformative capability of like energy, and also tying into nature and picking up the power of the wind and the ocean and the earth itself, like touching the earth and feeling the power of the earth,
Oh yeah.
of feeling the wind,
Yeah.
feeling the sun, and that it's all energy. There's all energy
Yeah.
there in different forms. So it makes sense well, why does that work? Because it's all energy. You can measure the energy all around you. You could scientifically measure it. You could find it, like, that's not fake. That's real. There's real energy there. So it's just figuring out how to channel it and make it go where it needs to be to
Yeah.
actually improve your life. It makes a lot of sense that energy healing is a thing. Is something that, if I've talked to many people on the show that believe what you believe and practice what you believe. And
We
there's certain folks maybe will never get it, but other people, if you're curious, I think you should check it out, because there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with checking something out
Right.
and seeing if it works for you.
Yeah, I mean, people just have to have an open mind to those things and just I've always said that I have a teachable spirit. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong and change whenever information is given to me that, conflicts with my own inner beliefs. And I've been on this spiritual journey for so many years. And it's just exciting the times that we're living in, because you see so many people coming back to those things, to nature. And I read that book Earthing like years ago and got all into the earthing and learning about walking on the dirt and being more connected to the earth. And now you're seeing it all over social media sites, like this new thing: go out, get in the dirt and ground yourself. And all these things are starting to come about. And it's so funny to see it. Like, yeah, it's a great time to
Yeah,
be alive.
everything comes
Yeah.
everything comes back around. I'm a child of the '70s. I'm a child of the '70s, and I saw the hippies out there with no shoes on, out there in the grass and communing, and they had a lot of things of these communes and these ideas, and they were trying to go back to nature and to get into organic farming and get away from the structure of society they thought was. And it seems like it's full circle, that those type of mindsets that people
Yeah.
kind of poo-pooed is like, oh, that's all hippie, new age, whatever.
Right.
And now people are like,
They're all into
there was
it.
something about that. Now they're all back like, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Like, because they have certain mindsets. So you're like, oh, I'm in this Wall Street money mindset. I gotta show me the short-term gain right now, and it's
Yeah.
all like scientific. It's all logic, and it's like everything else is like, if I can't quantize it, and I can't figure it out, you know,
Right.
then there's some things that are belief. But the thing with this is like, well, there is some logic in it, and there's some measurement where you can see it, where you can
Yeah.
pick it up.
It's like it's
So
merging the
then you have
science and
so then you're like, oh, Yeah, it's merging the science and the belief. Because before people were like, well, you have to believe it without showing me it, right? You didn't have the
Right.
device, right? Back in the 60s
Yeah.
and the 70s, you go to some shaman or a guru and they tell you that, and you'd either, oh, I buy into it or I don't buy into it, you know, and you
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of evidence other than did you actually feel that they healed you from what they're talking
Right.
about. But now you have things where you actually can show
Yeah.
some demonstratable frequencies or that what is going on. Which,
Right.
people want to see the show me, talking about, oh, you got to show. And so, do you find that helps in this practice versus like if it was you didn't have that machine and you had to show somebody this without a machine and you had to do it based on like I can feel it without showing them some kind of technology. Do you think you'd have a harder time getting people to buy into it?
Usually the people that come to me are already into it. They've already heard something or they've looked
Was already in.
into healing. So I haven't had too many people that are like really Debbie Downers, But when I first started out, I had to practice on so many people before I could get my certification. So I was like calling up my friends, do you want me to do some free energy healing work on you? And there was like one that was like seriously doubting it. And she became like my biggest, my biggest advocate after we did the healing work and stuff on her. And I remember like the whole time we were doing sessions on her, she's like, yeah, I don't really believe in this stuff. I just so you, I don't believe in this stuff, but you can go ahead and work on me. And she would always say that. I don't really believe in it, but yeah, I'll volunteer.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay. And then she started feeling better and seeing results. And she's like, okay, there's something to this. And then she went to my website and she wrote a review. And I was like, that's pretty cool. She was against it the whole time. And she
That's
still
always
got,
good.
yeah, I just
Well,
love that one.
that's a good story. That's a good example. Well, that's a very good story because that kind of is what people want, in the show me state of the world is like, oh,
Yeah.
you got, you get the doubting Thomas or the doubting person, to say, hey, I don't know, and then you got to prove it, and that's kind of like anytime you're out there and you're pushing the envelope, and you're doing something that's not part of like what we do every day and it's not, oh, this is not something I'm used to, right? Then
Yeah.
people are kind of like, but I think what you're dealing with is people who are coming from a situation where they need healing. They were trying to use the current infrastructure and it wasn't really doing it, right?
Yeah.
They're going to what exists to them outside of energy healing and they weren't getting the result they want.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people start looking for these other things, the holistic type of things, and people want to go back to nature and be organic or feel the earth or what, because they were doing all those other things and they
Yeah.
didn't get a result. So they're like, okay,
Right.
well now I got to open my mind and get try something else because like what's the definition of doing the same thing over and over and getting the same thing happening? Like, you you gotta try
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, I know somebody who was on 12 medications and she started looking at it and she said, I realized over the years that all the medications after the first one were to treat the side effects of the first medicine. Like you said, it was just side effect of
Yeah,
this. And then
yeah, that's
she slowly started
yeah.
getting back to nature and she's not on anything now, like anything. And she's so happy to say that. Yeah, we need to get
Well, you
back
see
to
all
that.
these ads, and it's like, okay, I'll get rid of my skin condition, and maybe I'll give myself cancer. And like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna take a pill that's supposed to fix a rash, but I could give
Yeah.
myself lymphoma. It's like, is really a rash worth getting lymphoma? I don't know about that. It's like that, that like cost benefit doesn't look that good to me.
Right. Oh my
It's like
gosh.
really,
Yeah. We
So
laugh
yeah,
at
it's like
too.
got to find something that's like less damaging. So I don't have to take one thing for this thing and then another thing for that thing and the thing for this thing. Well, now I got a medicine chest full of things. I was trying to get rid of one thing and now I got 10 things. It's like,
I
what's
know.
that? It's like, why it seems like making somebody rich.
You're making so much rich. Yeah.
And it,
Oh,
you know,
Crazy. My husband and I watched this YouTube documentary called How to Change Your Mind. That was pretty eye-opening. Have you seen that?
I don't think I saw that yet. Well, maybe show, maybe send me a link.
It's pretty good. It's about natural, natural medicines and things out there that we could use to help. It also with PTSD and other health issues that, of course, have been hidden from us, like some of the experiments the government has done that have helped people, like that. I guess like mushrooms and stuff. They've used some of those to help people. They used to help PTSD and other people, but they've kept that all hidden. They don't, it's illegal. You can't use this. We'd rather put you on some pills. It's sad.
Well, there's a lot of like things like mushrooms. Yeah, there's a lot of mushrooms. There's a lot of natural, there's a lot of plants. They're in the Amazon forest or even in our forest in North America that the Cherokee and the Blackfoot they knew to use.
Yeah,
like roots and all kinds of things, and they knew that they had effects, and they kind of poo-pooed it. Like, oh, these Native Americans, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, then they go, oh,
yeah.
I guess they did know what they were talking about.
I even heard tobacco was
like,
good for it. Put all that stuff in it.
Yeah. I mean, in its natural form, where it's not, the problem with what we do is they take it and you concentrate it to a level that's beyond what is in nature.
Yeah.
The cocoa leaf, if you just chew it, it has natural capability. But if you concentrate it, turn it into cocaine, it's like, it's like that. Well, that becomes way more than what it was.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that were out there that had natural properties that, they actually were medicinal, but then they can become poison. Anything can go to that level. You can take anything and make it poison. You can take a little bit of it and it works. Too much of it, it'll kill you. And so it's like a balance. It's like the way the world is. There's always a balance, and then people go to extremes. So as long as you stay in balance, usually be okay. If you go too far one way or the other, then you get out of balance.
Right. Well, that's kind of what the scanner does too. It'll pick up the emotions that are the most overused or most underused, because there's even emotions that we don't use enough of that we could do more with, like love and forgiveness and stuff. So we definitely need more of that. Everything in moderation.
I mean, I just think it's a big good. Well, I think it's a great conversation we've had tonight. We're kind of getting to the end, but I think it's very important for people. When I bring on the podcast, I bring different points of view. I bring people who have expertise that you're in, the energy healing, and you're bringing your perspective. And I just want people to have this forum to listen to people who have different points of view or different expertise or different levels of expertise in what they practice and what they do, and give our audience and the opportunity to check it out, to go to your website, and that'll be clickable when we're fully published, and engage with you and check it out. And it's just that's what I bring to the audience is like we talk to people from around the world like yourself, and we give people the opportunity to find out some new knowledge, something maybe they hadn't heard before, something they were interested in, and talk about it long enough for you to get a feel for it, so you can make a decision on if you want to check it out. So thank you for being here tonight to talk about this and get people into the idea, like lighthouseenergyhealing.com. Check that out. And I think it's real important for people just to explore things, because learning is something you don't have to stop doing just because you're not in school. You can keep on learning every day.
Exactly. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you. This is great.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Well, yeah, it's just a conversation. We like to talk to new people, get new ideas, and allow people to use their own judgment, check things out. And I thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Bye.